Jack Ebling here with Dan Kilbridge, SpartanTailgate.com's All Big Ten team for 2010. You heard the offense, Dan, a lot of tremendous defensive players, and I think the Big Ten as strong as any conference in the country on the defensive line.
Absolutely. So many choices you could have made there. I mean, like we were saying earlier with the receivers, it's hard to pick just one defensive lineman in each spot. I mean, they've got some guys who are not just great in the conference, but great national defensive linemen, really make an impact in the passing game. And, you know, Big Ten, I think defensive linemen are more important than maybe any other conference in the country. So it's they're rich in talent there, and it's good for all the teams involved.
Did you go with a four-man line and three linebackers, a three-man line and four linebackers, or did you do a 4-4-4 alignment?
I went with the 4-3. I think that's the way defense should be played, and that's how I run my all Big Ten team.
All right. Let's talk about some of the defensive players. I started with Ryan Kerrigan, and I thought he was as good a defensive player as you're going to find anywhere in this country. I think he's going to be a terrific pro. He's got a great motor. He just never stops going and makes big plays. Tackles for losses, forced fumbles. He's really a game changer. I thought the second best defensive lineman this year was J.J. Watt of Wisconsin, and he was another tremendous player. A little bit of a surprise compared to some of the people that you heard about before the season. I don't think he was quite as heralded as a couple of others. And I had Corey Leggett on the team from Illinois. I thought he was a tremendous player when he played Michigan State early in the year. Of course, toward the end of the year, Illinois gave up a lot of points and yards and wasn't the same team, but he was very impressive to me. And Cameron Hayward of Ohio State, I thought, was a very solid player. Once again, one of the reasons Ohio State led the Big Ten in defense.
Right, we're pretty similar here, only one difference on the line. I think the guy Adrian Claiborne that you left out, I also left off, and a lot of people pick him. I just didn't think he had the season that warrants this kind of attention. He was preseason All Big Ten last year. I just thought he had a much better junior year than a senior year. Still a tremendous player, but I'll get to my picks here. Ryan Kerrigan, the easy choice, NCAA leader all-time in forced fumbles. J.J. Watt as well. I mean, just a great player. 7 sacks, 18 tackles for loss. Corey Leggett, I mean, he's a great run stopper, big guy, but can also disrupt some things in the passing game, which we saw him do against Michigan State. Then I went with Ali Agbu out of Penn State. I thought he was a really special player. Really enjoyed watching him this past weekend and all year, really, and that's my four. Pretty close.
That's a pretty good defensive line. The linebacking core, everyone talks about Greg Jones and what a dominant player he was, and as a contributor to Michigan State's team over the years, you really have to go some to pass him. But I have Greg Jones in the middle. I have Brian Roll of Ohio State on one flank, and I'm moving Martez Wilson, who played a little bit in the middle, played a little bit on the edge. I'm moving him to the other outside spot.
That's what I did as well with Wilson. He's my outside linebacker. He made a lot of plays for that Illinois team, especially in that win at Penn State, which was so important for the Fighting Illini. Really impressed me there. Greg Jones, another easy choice, done so much, and maybe didn't have as many tackles this year as he had in other seasons, but I think teams focused on him a lot more, and that opened up spots for guys like Eric Gordon, who was near the top in Big Ten in tackles this year. So he does some things even when he's not recording statistics that really help you win games. The other guy I went with Ross Hoffman of Ohio State, so same school, chose him as my outside linebacker. I think he's maybe a little bit better in pass coverage, but again, Ohio State's defense, you can pretty much pick any of those guys and you're going to be in good shape.
Whether you go with Brian Roll or Ross Holman, I think you're going to have a pretty good linebacker out there on the side. My defensive backs, I started with Tyler Sash of Iowa. I thought he was the class of the class, and I also liked Chimdi Chekwa of Ohio State. I thought he was a very good player. I picked Sean Prater, corner from Iowa. I thought that Iowa had the best defensive backfield in the conference. I took Ricardo Allen, newcomer, and I thought he was a very good player for Purdue.
Absolutely. I like Ricardo Allen too. He would be on my second team and definitely someone we're going to hear a lot about in the years to come. Went with Chekwa as well. I think what he did for the Buckeyes this year speaks for itself. Tyler Sash, great career for the Hawkeyes. Went with Jamel Hines from Ohio State. I really like him as well and what he was able to do with the safety spot, providing great coverage back there. And then guy that may surprise some people, especially if you watched him play last week, is Johnny Adams out of Michigan State. I mean, he struggled so much, 2 dropped interceptions, but at the beginning of the year and through the middle of the season, I'm not sure there was a better defensive back in the conference. As far as making his secondary better, I thought he really, teams are going to stay away from Rucker with how good he is back there. And I think Johnny Adams just played great coverage and was the best defensive back on a unit, which improved so much from a year ago. Really made some plays as a sophomore, and he'll make some more plays in the years to come here.
I thought the Michigan State secondary was the most improved unit in the league. Of course, look at where they started. But I had a Michigan State player who nearly made my list, and that was Marcus Hyde. He was one of the last ones that I cut from consideration for a first-team berth. Let's talk about the specialists now and put the kicker and the punter in this segment. Who do you have as your place kicker?
I've got Dan Conroy. I mean, what he was able to do, he didn't have to make many clutch kicks at the end, but he only missed one of them this year. You think about the big field goals. In the early part of the season, he was perfect against, Notre Dame and those types of big games. I just really liked what he was able to come in, and it wasn't an easy job with the guy he had to replace in Brett Swenson, but he showed a lot of poise in being able to get that done.
And your punter?
Big surprise here, went with Aaron Bates. I mean, hey, maybe as a punter / quarterback, I guess we could create a new segment for next year, a new spot on that team. But with the throw he made during the Northwestern game, Little Giants, the Notre Dame game, I should say, he just really impressed me. And also pinned some teams deep. He was just a very good all-around player this year.
I only have one Spartan on my first-team offense, one on my first-team defense, but I have both kickers from Michigan State, as you do. I think that Dan Conroy was the biggest surprise in the league this year, an area that looked as if it was going to be a definite weakness for Michigan State. Came on, did a fantastic job, and I have Aaron Bates in a new position I'm calling punter back. So he's going to be there, and he may be throwing a pass on my team at some point. That's our 2010 All Big Ten defense. We'll be back in just a moment. We'll talk about the Freshman of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Players of the Year, some of the near misses, some of the guys we had to leave off this team, and finally, our Coach of the Year. We'll be right back with that for SpartanTailgate.com.